Okay, gonna wait like maybe one more minute and then I'm gonna get started, even if I have to just talk to the camera. And I can't even see who it is. Okay, there's 3 people here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started on my do-over. Hey, Christine, long time no see, friend. Where you been? So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. There's 4 people here, so that's plenty. Hopefully, some people will catch the replay. So, welcome to my official kickoff of 46 Days to 46. And let me first say, y'all, because I write stuff out, I had written out all these notes that I was going to use, but then I decided I'm not. It felt good to write it out and make stuff make sense, but then I decided I'm not going to use it. So I do have some bullets over here that I might look at, so I stay focused and stay on track, because I got a time frame in my mind that I got to stay within. So 46 days of 46, how did we get here? Firstly, 45 was a great year. I was on the other side of a lot of stuff. Yes, ma'am. I was on the other side of a lot of stuff, so the healing process is kind of ongoing, as is the grieving process. But 45 was good. But what started to happen during 45 is I would get glimpses or like a taste of the life that I'm working towards, that I at times feel like I should already be living. Let me say that. Hey, Cedric, how you doing? I'm beyond blessed, better than blessed. So I'm super thankful, but I'm super thankful, period, full stop. But there are things I would have liked to accomplish by now. So anyway, moving on, 45 was a good year, but I started to get these glimpses of like the future, what things could really be like if I moved differently. And it would be a glimpse, and then it would go away, and something else would happen that would be like that small confirmation. It would be like that small, oh Lord, yes, I did. It don't make me say nothing crazy on my live. But yeah, so the glimpses of what life, the future is like, would be like, kept coming, but they didn't stay. Like, they would come and go and come and go and come and go. And so finally I was just like, okay, God, what, something is missing. Something, like, what's the missing piece? Because I couldn't figure it out. I was just like, I'm doing all the things. What's the missing piece? I keep getting these glimpses of my future, the life I can see so clearly, but it's like a glimpse and then it goes away, and a glimpse and it goes away. So finally I was like, okay, God, what is it? What is it? Because I don't know. I done all the things, and it's still just like something's missing. And so I prayed about it, and did what we do sometimes. Lord, just give me a sign, tell me something. And so I prayed about it and kind of left it there. And most of the week of Christmas we spent at my mom's house. So it was me, her, my daughter in the bed, and the dog, the giant dog, down on the floor in front, because he ain't getting in nobody's bed. So anyway, Christmas morning, early, probably like 5 or 6 o'clock, I woke up and I was just laying there, and I heard you. And I knew it was the answer to my question, but I was still just like, God, what you mean, me? I'm asking you what the missing piece is to my life and my businesses and all the things. Like, what's missing? And he was like, you was just the word again. And I was like, but I'm here. I'm here. And as I started to think about it, I was like, I am here, but I'm behind the scenes doing, because when you're building something, it's very different from walking into something that's been in place even 3, 4, or 5 years. That looks very different from year one or what led up to year one and even year two. So I was like, God, I'm here, I'm working, I'm up sometimes all night, late night, whatever, in between freelance writing projects, working on the businesses and the back office stuff. I'm my own intern, I'm my own marketing person, I'm my own so I'm doing all the things until I'm in a position to delegate. But somehow I still was not showing up. And so that leads me to what I've recognized as part of the problem. And in my 30s, I was diagnosed with, and stay with me here, I'm going somewhere, but in my 30s, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which came as a complete random shock to me. And if you're like me, you grew up in the 90s, unless you were a complete and total behavior problem, always running to the pencil sharpener, those type things, you weren't an issue. Now, I probably took a nap or two, and I was always friends with the class clowns, so I did a lot of laughing, but nothing that was perceived as out of the ordinary. So I'm like, well, God, I'm in my 30s, ADHD. And I realized that my life looked very different. I was teaching high school full-time. I was teaching at a couple of colleges part-time. I had, I think, a 3-year-old at that time, and then just life. And that's when I realized that. And so if you are a person with ADHD, or you know people with ADHD, there's this thing called executive functioning, which is, there's 6 things under it, but basically planning, organization, time management. Those are things that what folks now call neurodivergent, which is an umbrella. But those are things that people really have to work at. And I am her. And working for yourself is very different from the structure even of teaching. You've got class times. If you're teaching K-12, you've got your planning period. So there's a lot of structure. Otherwise, you gotta create it. And so that's also been a thing for me. And what I figured out is I have to set small goals, small tasks, and break it into bite-sized pieces. So that's realizing that I have to better manage my ADHD. Let me say that. Hey girl, hey. So I guess that's part of the you. Realizing that I had to better manage that. And I had been working at it, but not consistently. So better management of the executive functioning and all of that. And so when I was talking about the 46 days to 46, a friend of mine was like, well, what's the numbers thing about? Because you did something with numbers before. And I did. It was a great suggestion someone gave me earlier this year. In February, I did 14 things I love about the Co-work Boutique. And what was really great about that is it forced me to show up every day. Even if I was having a bad day, or even if I had gone home and forgotten, I was like, okay, I still gotta do this video. So it was my way of holding myself accountable for the project. So I said, well, I'm about to turn 46. I've got some habits that need a good bit of work. I definitely need some more structure in my life, because the answer I got was you. But I think the full answer is your consistency. Everything if I look at my life and map out what are the challenge areas, it all points back to consistency. If I look at my weight now in my 40s, consistency. Tamika Taylor said it to me very politely. Not so polite, but she basically said that to me yesterday. And so what happens is with the inconsistency, because life is life, and it's very, very easy to get derailed by something and get off track. And then once you're off track one day, it's easy for it to just spiral. So I was like, okay, this 46 days is about to be my moment. So the 46 days has 3 pillars. Me, which is my health and wellness, the other work I do, which is, you know, working with nonprofits and freelance writing. That's pillar 1, just me, and working on consistency, which is why the 46 days of being consistent, I put it out here, just being honest. I pray that it blesses somebody. I pray that something I say or my transparency helps somebody, but just keeping it 100 is for me first, to force me to do a better job of consistently showing up in all areas of my life. And so then the other 2 pillars are the Co-work Boutique and the Turning Point Tribune, which also need my consistency and for me to show up more and in a different way. Because again, when you're building, it's just different. It just is a whole different animal. When you're building and then trying to map out what executive functioning areas you need to focus on, and trying to create and put structure into my day. And I'm a creative at heart, so structure, I do better with structure, but I would really like for somebody else to create it and give it to me and hold me accountable. But that ain't real life, so I got to do it, which is why we're at the 46 days. So with the Co-work Boutique, same thing. Do the work behind the scenes, but you got to be out front and consistent with whatever you do, because somebody was like, Shay, the co-working conversation sessions were so good. Y'all were getting so much done. And I was like, yeah, girl. What had happened was, you know, so, and I recognize that in myself, that it's very, very easy for me to have like an emotional moment and, okay, you know, and just whatever. So the 46 days of 46 is going to prevent that. I will be dropping some other links tomorrow with things that we've got for the Co-work Boutique. And then lastly, let me see where I am on my time, y'all. Hold on. Ooh, okay, I'm a little over. And so lastly, the Turning Point Tribune, also something absolutely being built from the ground up. And what I realized when I was thinking about that and mapping out like what 2025 was going to look like for the Turning Point Tribune, I realized that I had not really talked publicly about what the actual vision is for the Turning Point Tribune. I do it at night at Turning Point Tuesdays, but I hadn't really talked to a more broader community about the vision behind it. And so a newspaper is what it was called and what people still say, but news in the traditional sense was never the mission. I think news is very necessary. We need the updates on crime. We need updates with, you know, things happening in the city and things happening, you know, across our community. We need that. It's very necessary. But that wasn't the lane that I was interested in. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a 90s kid, and what I loved about the 90s and what continues to bless my life through relationships that I formed or extensions of relationships that my dad had, the 90s, they were in-person connections. I remember, you know, my parents going to Ben's, you know, and all the other spots, you know, where folks would hang out back then, because they were, you know, they were in their 40s, I guess, back then. But I also remember I remember real estate agents getting together. I remember, you know, businesses, business women, organizations coming together. And what happened was connections were made. You know, people got what they needed. They got pointed in the right direction. They got support. You know, I remember as far back as all the people I saw as a little girl who are now, you know, city officials and elected people at the Ralston Tower at the NAACP banquet. You know, like those are the type of memories I have of the 90s. And so I want to return to that. The other thing, when I was thinking about what the turning point would look like, I'm a reader. I don't read as much now, but I was a big magazine reader in the 90s. So Ebony, Upscale, Sophisticate's Black Hair, Hype Hair magazine, loved it. Like those were my, I had the stacks. Jet magazine, and you know, that was just a thing. So what I wanted for the Turning Point Tribune is to be, we will get to a point where we will cover some news as we grow. We'll definitely start to cover more local events, and I encourage people to submit stuff, and we'll talk more about that later as well for the Turning Point. But ultimately, I want people to be able to come to the Turning Point Tribune and get inspiration, quality content about, you know, life, business, family, parenting, relationships, things like that. So it's not necessarily a news hub in the traditional sense. And I realized that newspaper was a thing. I think I even say it sometimes, and I'm trying to pivot it over to news magazine. So that's the real vision, is those publications from the 90s are the vision, as well as within that, the Turning Point being a hub for business owners, particularly minority business owners, Black-owned businesses, to support, to network, to get in the room. For example, with Turning Point Tuesday, it'll never be live streamed. You'll probably never get more from it than the clips that Robin does for us each week. Because in the 90s, when you were networking or you were at happy hour, or, you know, some of the other things that would happen after work here back then, you couldn't leave and go home and post a recap on Facebook because won't know Facebook. So, you know, what happened in the room just happened in the room, and people moved accordingly. So Turning Point Tuesdays is that same concept. I even encourage people to bring actual printed business cards when they come to Turning Point Tuesday, because what happens at Turning Point Tuesday stays at Turning Point Tuesday. You got to be in the room. And so again, that whole premise goes back to my love for all things 90s. And so with that being said, the other thing that I had been thinking about, and then I'm gonna wrap this up, y'all, almost done. The other thing I had been thinking about was, I still want something that feels something you can hold. And we're not at a place yet where we're ready to do a printed magazine or something of that nature. It's coming, but we're not there yet. But I was like, okay, God, I want to support small businesses. I want to highlight nonprofits that are doing great work in their communities. And I want to serve Columbus and the Tri-City area, but I also want to serve Middle and Southwest Georgia, parts of Alabama. So kind of regional, and specifically we're starting with Columbus, Tri-City area, Fort Valley, Warner Robins, Perry, Albany are the primary cities. But what we're doing is we are launching a printed business directory. It will be available on February 1st. And what will happen is those will be printed every other month. So like if you're in the February book, then it'll be out for February and March, and then the new one rolls out April 1st. So every other month, and then we'll probably double up at the end of the year. Yes, ma'am, Cousin Perry. So Yeah, so that's the plan. We'll probably double up at the end of the year, figure out something different for holidays. But a printed business directory is what we are doing. There's a link at the top that gives you more detail about what the business directory looks like. You will actually be able to walk into restaurants, maybe churches in those cities I named, and actually pick up a printed business directory. And maybe you need something that, if you're in a small town, maybe you need something that your town doesn't have. Because they're thriving Black-owned businesses, but they're in towns that are much smaller than even Columbus. So there might be resources or things they need, and this might be an easier way. Christine, don't do that. This might be a helpful way to connect people across Columbus and Middle and Southwest Georgia and parts of Alabama. So printed business directory, I'm super, super, super excited about that, and it's just in time for Black History Month. So check out the link for that. That is a special offer that I wanted to do since I'm celebrating 46, celebrating 2025, the start of a new year, celebrating these ventures that I've poured into, that my family has poured into, that friends have poured into in multiple ways, and to make sure that I show up for myself. So expect something. It probably won't be a live every day. I might do a live like once a week, but expect a vlog or some written content or some combination of both every day. I'm not going to say any more or restrict myself any more than that, because that's where it just all goes to pieces. So I'm not going to say every day by 3 o'clock. I ain't there yet. We just going to get through the 46 days. So with that being said, I thank you all so much for tuning in to my kickoff and hearing the big announcement about our printed business directory. We're always looking for writers. We're always looking for sales reps, people who want to do that work and get commission, particularly out in some of the smaller counties or even here in Columbus. So just hit up me or Tawana Moore, who is the sales director for the Turning Point Tribune. Right, Denise, I know myself very well, so I'm just gonna limit it to before midnight, before 11:59, because if I do anything else, it's just gonna have me frazzled, and then I'll be like, oh, I just can't do nothing. So yeah, I need it, and I recognize that if I had somebody who just mapped out my life and was like, you need to be here, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, it'd be easy, but that ain't real life. So it's just about me showing up and showing up consistently. Consistent is the word. The word I've had for the last few years is thrive. And I got closer. Y'all, let's get my nails. I got closer and closer and closer. I get closer and closer to that each year. So I'm definitely, thriving, but there's more that I want. There's more that I want to do. There's more people I want to be in a position to serve and help and uplift. And so in order to do that, I got to show up the right way for me first. So here we are. Feel free to check in if you have not seen a vlog or some content from me about what's going on with the day as this journey continues. And I thank you all for tuning in. Click the link. I'll post it later too, so that you can get in on our first printed business directory. And on January 7th, Turning Point Tuesday resumes. We've got Cedric Torbert, who will be talking all things taxes. And the full lineup is on my page, because I don't remember off the top of my head. But definitely check in for Turning Point Tuesday. Be in the room, because if you're not in the room, and y'all, we haven't had over probably 8 people to show up since we started. We've only done, I think, 5 of them. But the connections that have been made just as a result of the people who showed up, whose paths would not have otherwise crossed had they not been at Turning Point Tuesday, has just been amazing to see those connections that have been already made and the networking that's happening. So again, like I said earlier, you will see a brief recap of Turning Point Tuesdays each week, but we'll never really do a deep dive into that because that's not the premise. And remember, in the 90s, you couldn't go home and recap on Facebook or anything like that. So you got to be in the room. So hopefully, starting back on Tuesday, June 7th, we will see you here at 2411 Warm Springs Road for Turning Point Tuesday. And I think I see Robin and Christina doing a lot in the chat, but I'm just gonna sign on off. Thank you, love you guys. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 1.